Hi everybody. Today we're here on News Wars. This is kind of a follow-up to my last video about the Russians kicking royal butt over in Syria, taking out some CIA infiltrators. This comes from News Wars, which is InfoWars' other site, and it looks like it came by way of RT.com last Friday, September 15th, 2017. Pentagon falsifying paperwork to send arms worth $2 billion to Syria, report finds. Pentagon shipping $2 billion in weapons to Syria through shady means and covering up the paper trail, the report alleges. The Pentagon continues to ship billions of dollars worth of weapons to Syria, according to a damning report by two monitoring groups that also reveals the U.S. is falsifying documents to cover its tracks. Now, if ever there was any possible use for a Robert Mueller, this would be it. Hey Mueller, why don't you get a real job? Here's a hint. Come get this one. The Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, OCCRP, and the Balkan Investigative Reporting Network, BIRN, uncovered evidence revealing the Pentagon is not only shipping as much as $2 billion in weapons to Syria through shady means, it's also purposely covering up the paper trail. It's what they do. The secret program began after the Pentagon's $500 million plan to train Syrian rebels ended in failure in October 2015, with only a handful successfully trained. And every single one of those that were successfully trained turned around and found the nearest ISIS camp and handed over all their weapons and volunteered for duty. We all remember reading about that, I'm sure. The Pentagon then started a new program of arming the rebels. These two groups outlined in their investigations published on Balkan Insight on Tuesday. The investigation is built on evidence from thousands of documents, including procurement records, ship tracking data, official reports, and leaked emails, as well as interviews. So they're not just sitting around speculating. They've got the documents to prove what they're saying. The reporters cite a February 2016 Pentagon budget document requesting $210,800,000 for weapons, ammunition, and equipment for vetted Syrian opposition, which outlines the need to supply the opposition with former Soviet bloc FSB weapons and ammunition because such groups already use them. It also points to an October 2015 DoD press briefing detailing 50 tons of ammunition being delivered to a friendly Syrian Arab coalition in Syria. What this means, quite briefly, is that they're still funding terrorists to try to overthrow the Assad government and take over Syria. It's still going on. They never stopped. Reporters have identified over $700 million in weapons likely delivered to Syrian rebels. There's that word likely, we got to point that out. Between September 2015 and May 2017, the Department of Defense has budgeted $584 million for the Syrian arms operation for 2017 and 2018. A further $900 million will be spent on munitions between now and 2022. Let me say that again. $900 million of our tax money will be spent on munitions for terrorists in Syria between now and year 2022. So the deep state actually plans on this continuing for at least another 4 or 5 years. The investigators report the $2.2 billion figure is likely an understatement. And here's their little graph. We can take a minute and look at that too. The arms spending spree for Syrian rebels. Pentagon right there in the center of it. $500 million. Yep. Well, you can read that for yourself. You can go to NewsWars site and scrutinize this if you want. We're just going to move on here. Network. The weapons supply network stems from the Balkans, Eastern Europe, and the Caucasus and includes arms dealers, cargo and shipping companies, and German military bases. I guess this is Angela Merkel's way of, thumbing her nose at President Trump. Not that it wasn't expected. Before the new program began, it says here, its spending on Eastern Bloc weaponry was negligible. U.S. support Spec Ops Com runs one weapons purchase channel, which the Pentagon confirmed in a statement to investigators. According to the Pentagon, it carefully vets the recipients of the weapons. Sure it does. The other shipping channel is operated by Picatinny Arsenal, which is a weapons manufacturing and research facility in Jersey, which is also home to the U.S. Army Armament Research Development and Engineering Center. Somebody needs to go and dig into Picatinny Arsenal and find out who's funding them. We might be surprised. Or not. United States Special Operations Command purchased $240 million in weaponry from Bulgaria, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Serbia, Poland, Romania, the Czech Republic, and Kazakhstan up to May 2017. Now, those are all countries where our deep state military has either went in and blown off the map or just eliminated their government and their leaders and moved in and took over. Those are all on the list. Every one of those countries are George Soros funded coups. Go look it up. SOCOM also chartered 4 cargo ships to transfer tons of munitions from the Black Sea ports to Turkey and Jordan, and I will bet you that Russia knows every single rat that stowed away on the board of the ships. Here's another graphic for you. U.S.-backed rebel forces in Syria. Notice the little Pentagon symbols here. We got 3 of them. Over here in Aleppo, remember all the big to-do about Aleppo? Okay, they didn't want Russia and Syria in Aleppo for anything. They fought tooth and nail to keep them out of there. And over here, we knew they were up here by the Lebanon and Turkey and Iraq, Iraq and Turkey, and down here in Jordan, that's where they've been saying, well, you can't come into your own country because we're already here. And then we got the CIA, which under no circumstances should the CIA actually be in this country. The CIA should have its ass in its own country, not over here trying to overthrow the Assad government, which is exactly what this is still happening here. Okay, some of the weapon suppliers have been identified as having links to organized crime, the investigation reports, such as demand for Soviet-designed weapons that the manufacturers have had to increase production. Okay, the investigation reveals the Pentagon is fraudulently manipulating documents to cover up its actions. It found 7 contracts worth $71 million signed in September 2016, which referenced Syria for the DoD's internal code for the country, V7. However, as soon as reporters asked back in March about the deliveries, the files were deleted. The Pentagon declined to comment on this. They also have deleted or archived or removed the fact that when Crimea threw itself off and went independent and asked to join Russia, that the U.S. military had already, the Department of Defense had already had contractors set aside to go in to Crimea and the Black Sea port there and remodel everything to suit American standards. They already had them lined up and everything. And then when Crimea petitioned Russia to join Russia, then I guess the United States, just their little armadas waiting off the coast, just had to go home. They went on up to Turkey or wherever it was because, the coup wasn't going to work. They weren't going to get Crimea. You can't find that anymore. I don't know if I have screenshots of that, but I noted it in another article. A further $408 million of equipment bought since the strategy switch has no destination on its forms. That's our Black Ops in play here. End user certificates are used to secure arms exports licenses, and of course to detail who will be the end user of the weapons in question. Documents seen by reporters list SOCOM and U.S. bases as the final user, even though the U.S. doesn't use such weaponry. No, we don't use old Soviet weapons. unless we happen to use one because it's all we got on the battlefield and somebody needs shot. Both Byrne and OCCRP receive funding and support from George Soros' Open Society Foundation, the National Endowment for Democracy, and the U.S. State Department. Let's go over that list again. Both of these investigative groups receive funding and support from George Soros' Open Society Foundation and his National Endowment for Democracy and the U.S. State Department. The triaxis of evil. Okay, Byrne also counts the European Commission, the UK Foreign Office, and several European governments as its donors and partners. Now, doesn't that just beat all? Here we have it that the George Soros Open Society and the U.S. State Department, I'll bet Hillary Clinton was into it up to her eyeballs in this whole thing. In fact, I'm pretty sure she was, just like she was with Libya. So what this article is basically telling us is that what we already know, that the deep state is still trying to overthrow Assad, and they're using our tax money and our lives, men and women's lives, to do it. And they don't plan to stop for several more years. So I'll leave you with that, and we'll find something else more interesting for next time. Y'all have a wonderful evening.